Hello and welcome to One on One. I'm Vernon Ramesar, and I'm very pleased to say my guest today is Rodney Ragbear, Managing Director of DriveWise Trinidad and also of Pro ATS. Well, that's for another day. We'll talk today about DriveWise. Rodney, welcome back to the program. Well, welcome to the program. I saw you on the weekend, so
thank you,
that's why I'm saying welcome back. It's a really interesting concept that's been around in other parts of the world. It's about proper driving, basically, in a word. The driving to ensure your safety and the safety of others on the road.
Correct.
But you're taking a technologically driven approach in addition to a classroom approach. Where did the idea come from? Obviously, you're a franchise of a Canadian organization now.
Yes.
What led you to this point?
Well, as you mentioned, I am the Managing Director of Professional Airline Training Solutions, and we are an advanced training organization where we train commercial pilots how to teach them advanced maneuvers, advanced techniques, and we do that through flight simulation. And we've realized that the results that we've received from flight simulators was incredible. Acknowledging the fact that we have a very big challenge on the roads in Trinidad and Tobago, we thought that if we applied the same kind of technology, we could achieve the same types of results. And that's why we brought our DriveWise to Trinidad.
No, I had the advantage, thanks to you, to come to experience for myself a little taste of DriveWise, yes, and of course the flight simulation as well. And I remember you said on Saturday, you said, you know, you're actually, when you're in the air, you're much safer than you are on the roads of Trinidad and Tobago, and that's really the truth, isn't it?
It is. As a pilot, you know, we in the air and we are training. We're all trained professionals. Everyone in the air is going through constant training every 6 months. We've studied flying for probably many years, and we have a lot of experience. But we're in a controlled environment. We have a lot of resources. We have another crew member. We have autopilot. We have air traffic control. We have collision avoidance systems. We have warning systems in our airplanes.
You have a lot more room to maneuver in as well, don't you?
Correct.
But when you're on Nations Road, and I don't think I'm the only person to say this, it seems it's getting worse and worse out there as we become more and more inconsiderate as a nation in terms of how we drive on the nation's roads. But for those of us who are concerned about safety, there are ways to ensure your safety despite what others may be doing on the roadways.
Correct. At DriveWise, we have a 6-star approach, and the 6-star approach is really the fundamentals and the foundation of our training. In Canada, we see over 30,000 students or participants a year. We train from novice drivers right up to emergency services, the police, the fire department, the ambulance. DriveWise Canada, we even trains the Canadian Forces as well.
The police, I understand, and
yes.
Emergency personnel and ambulance and things like that.
Correct.
But for basically up until now in TNT, we've had a scenario where if somebody wants to drive, they go and either tell their parents, teach me how to drive, they go and do their regulations, get a little learner's permit and go and do their test once, twice, sometimes pay some money, whatever. Or they go to driving school where they're just told you do this, you do that, and that's the end of it. There's a lot more to driving than that, isn't there, if you want to ensure your safety? And we have to get out of that sort of narrow view of what driving is about.
That's correct. What it boils down to, Vernon, is that most collisions, 95% of collisions are caused by driver behavior. Whether it's the form of driving too fast for road conditions, while it's driving under the influence of alcohol, whether it's speeding, those are all driver behaviors. And that's what we have to address. We have to address changing the attitudes and behaviors of the drivers. And how do we do that? We do it through quality presentations that we can have the participant truly see the reality and the consequences of improper actions or improper techniques. At DriveWise, our facility We have high quality presentations. We have audience response system, which you were able to
which was kind of fun,
participate in.
actually.
Yeah, it's what we look at is it's a way to.
And I got 100%. But
It's a way that we have to engage you in the training. The information that we have is very valuable information. However, the delivery of the information is quite important. If we can't deliver it to you, it becomes of no use.
That's what I realized with the training. It sort of made the information relevant. Because
Yes.
you said you would, in the classroom, you would explain to people, here's some of the things you have to do when you're on the road.
Right.
Some of the behaviors you have to sort of develop, some instincts that you have to develop. And then you reach another point where you say, okay, well, answer these questions, and they're actually push button, everybody has a remote control, and you can sort of compete against one another secretly
Right.
to see who actually knows, and then you can go ahead and correct them if they got too many wrong. But then beyond that, they get into a simulator.
Correct.
Where they're actually on the road, and where I confess I did not do very well. But you explain, well, that mightn't normally happen. But that is a possibility, and that's why we ask you to be aware of what's around you. You would look on both sides, look to see what's behind the vehicle. For example, in my case, a small child running out from behind a truck. So those are little things that you're reinforcing in them.
Yeah, exactly. And going back to the classroom that you just mentioned, that's only one aspect. The classroom is only one aspect. And then when we, as you mentioned, the audience response system, we use the audience response system. So therefore, all of our participants can actually answer anonymously. No one is singled out like a traditional.
So you're not shamed in front of everybody.
Exactly, and no one's intimidated. So you're using up all of your resources instead of setting up defense mechanisms. Oh no, are they going to ask me? That's not an issue anymore. Using up all of your resources to absorb the information. And as many times in the facility, we've seen academically and theoretically, people get 100%. But when we take them in the simulator and we apply that theory that we just learned in the classroom,
aren't you, Rodney?
when we take that theory that we applied in the classroom and we apply it in the simulator, we can see a disconnect. And it's quite common. It's because it's new, and it's because we need to educate and we need to train. And sometimes you don't just get it the first time, that's what we call building experience.
It's also called cognitive dissonance, where you know what you should be doing, but when it comes down to practice, you're not actually doing it. Right? So you're
Correct.
sort of reinforcing to ensure that people actually do it.
Correct. It's as I said, it's one. The classroom is one aspect, but taking that theory and applying it to hand-eye coordination and developing all those skills together takes some training.
Now, obviously, you're drawing on the experience of the Canadian experience, I guess, with DriveWise. And what I thought was interesting, Canada's a nation where they're very fussy about what goes on the roads, and the road behavior is enforced rigorously. But there's actually a significant reduction in the number of accidents, people who graduated the program.
Correct.
Even in those circumstances.
Yes. In Canada, the programs are recognized by the Ministry of Transport in Canada. Our programs are actually in colleges, in high schools. In Canada, we have a graduated licensing system where after you get your learner's permit, you actually get your first level, your stage 1 of a license. And you need to have that license for a period of 1 year before you can actually go and apply for your full license. If you do our programs, you can actually, in Canada, you can actually achieve that in 8 months. As well as if you take one of our programs in some of the schools or high schools in Canada, you actually get a credit towards your diploma. And yes, as you mentioned, it's the reduction in collision has been, we've done tremendous numbers, and in some aspects we've reduced collisions up to 45%.
And in fact, even the insurance industry, certainly in Ontario, I gather, has recognized that, and there are discounts offered to people who have taken the course.
Yes.
That'll be something I guess you're pursuing here on this end as well.
Yes, it's something that we will pursue. Although our focus really at DriveWise is saving lives. It's not about saving 5 or 10% on insurance. I mean,
Sounds like a Geico ad, doesn't it?
if you get, whatever value you get out of it, but like I said, our focus is on saving lives. And this 6-star approach that we have, if 95% of collisions in Trinidad and Tobago or around the world, if you look and you replay that collision, you can see if we applied our 6-star approach, how that collision could have been preventable.
Or completely avoided, or you could have
Yes.
circumvented it and gotten around that problem if you kept an area of safety around you.
Well, that's a good point. In fact, our training, our philosophy is a proactive approach. It's not reactive. So by applying the 6-star approach, what you will find is that you would see a situation developing before it occurs. So you could be proactive, and you could say, you know what, again, our programs are designed to show you the visual cues leading up to a collision. It's to teach you how to identify hazards, both hidden and obvious hazards. As you know, most of us have got our license just by someone who has never did any formal education or formal training of driving, and just put you in a vehicle and say, well, here's the gas, here's the brakes, here's the steering wheel. If you're lucky, you'll learn about your indicator.
Right. They don't teach that anymore, apparently. That's a thing of the past from what I gather on the roads.
Yes.
No, what's interesting, from the very beginning of the little sample module that you had me sit through, was that you mentioned it's not just about defensive driving, it's about cooperative driving as well.
Correct.
What is the difference between the two?
Defensive driving is typically when the driver themselves, they're looking after themselves, looking after the safety of themselves, their vehicle, and the occupants in their vehicle. Cooperative driving is when you protect all of that, but yet you drive for everyone else on the road. So maybe you would see a situation developing ahead of you. It's not a matter of who's right and who's wrong. It's a matter of a collision happening or not happening, and that's what we want to prevent. We want to prevent a collision. It's not a matter of who's right or who's wrong.
But if you practice defensive driving, to some extent, you're also preventing situations that would also come under cooperative driving as well, because you're also making the road a little safer by you practicing safe driving practices yourself.
Well, yes.
Semantics, I'm sure.
Yeah. I mean, the term defensive as opposed to cooperative, I mean, if you look at the words themselves, they kind of say a lot. As well as defensive driving tends to more be a reactive approach. And in DriveWise, we are more proactive approach to driving.
So you're sort of predicting scenarios and working things out in your head.
Yes, I mean,
long before.
And as you've seen in our simulator, we have scenarios that are actually real life occurrences of collisions, and we've taken them and we've put them in a database and we recreated those collisions. And now we're able to take the participants, put them in the simulator, and have them go through the same scenarios. And it's a great asset, because by doing that, everyone can learn from other people's mistakes. We don't all have to fall into the same trap. For instance, I mean, a simple example is a green light. How many of us look at both ways?
You're looking at me again, and I got licked away by a bus.
but you see, I mean, it's a simple example, and I was the same before I took the program.
Example, as you mentioned, in this country, so in Trinidad and Tobago,
yes,
a lot of people just ignore lights, or they regard them as sort of a guiding principle as opposed to an actual rule that you stop. So people will go whizzing through a red long after it's changed.
Yes.
So it is a reality.
Yeah, it is a reality, and for that purpose, you really need, as we teach in DriveWise, as you're approaching a light, we teach 4 things. We teach point of no return. So we pick a point at an intersection, because we identify an intersection as the envelope of risk. That's where most collisions occur, at intersections. So we pick a point of no return, that if that light turns amber, can I stop or do I need to continue? So through our training, you'll be able to pick a point of no return. And there's different factors. I mean, your speed, the weather conditions, the type of vehicle you're driving, if it's a light vehicle or a heavy vehicle, and the traffic behind you is a big factor as well. What we do is we have the 4 points of recall at an intersection. Your point of no return, scanning right, scanning center, and scanning left. And if you always commit that to memory, you can prevent a lot of collisions. Because remember, a green light doesn't mean no one's coming through the other side.
It means nobody should be coming,
Exactly.
but it's not reality.
And it means you have the right of way if the intersection is clear, right? But you really should be looking to make sure that no one is coming through.
But a lot of people will be listening to this and saying, well, that sounds like an awful lot of work. If every single second I'm driving, I'm looking at all these things all the time, it's going to kill me before I even get halfway to my destination. But I guess you're trying to make it an instinct, aren't you?
Correct. If you learn the methods, you will do it. It'll be second nature to you. You will do it without even consciously know that you're doing it. It's all a matter of training. And in our program, we have many ways to get our point across to you. For instance, this morning we had a student who wanted to do 110 in an 80 zone, and I showed them. I said, "Oh yeah." So I gave them a blowout at 110, and of course they collided with the guardrail.
That happened on Saturday too, as I recall. Yes. But Trinity seem to have no sense of speed on the roads, do they? I mean, we just think we can go as fast as the road allows you to go, without any thought of the consequences that could happen if there's a tire blowout, if there's a catastrophic engine failure, if somebody suddenly swerves in front of you, for example. We don't think about those things.
No, we don't. And then again, that's addressing driver attitudes and behaviors. And that's what we have to address. It's the driver attitude and behavior, because that accounts for more than 95% of collisions. All driver. I mean, you don't see accidents happening because of mechanical failure. You may
not very often.
Very rare. Most of the collisions that you see will happening is because of speeding, because of driving too fast for the road conditions. As I mentioned, maybe driving impaired, and many other considerations as well. But they all fall into this category of your attitude and your behavior. And if we can show you the consequences of your actions, it brings reality closer to home.
Well, I can almost draw an analogy between that and the crime situation in Trinidad and Tobago. 90% plus of citizens are law-abiding and try and do things the right way.
Yes.
There's a small percentage that want to be criminals, and they really endanger the rest of us in doing so. The same thing on the roads. You've got some people who can only be described as offensive drivers.
Yes.
I mean, can this help the average person avoid those drivers and the accidents that they cause?
Of course, because like I said again, our program is designed to show you, first of all, to identify visual cues leading up to a collision. It's also designed to show you how to identify hazards, and there are many types of hazards. We show you how to be predictable, as well as predict others as well. A simple rule of thumb is that when you see an indicator on, we think that the person, if they have a right indicator, that we think they're going right. But if those tires are not turning towards the right and the tires are straight, that means the vehicle's going straight. Again, as you mentioned, wow, that sounds like a lot of work, but it's not. If you're trained properly initially, it's all second nature.
But I think of so many scenarios, because I'm on the roads a lot more these days. You think you're doing the right thing, you check your mirrors, say if you're changing lanes to go into the non-passing lane, and all of a sudden there's somebody that comes, with nowhere inside in the mirror, suddenly comes barreling across multiple lanes to get to wherever they're going at 150 or 160.
Yes.
I mean, can you actually use your methods to stop getting in a collision in cases like that? Because
yes.
You cannot assume other drivers are rational.
No. And that's one of the keys to cooperative driving is expect anything. Mm-hmm. We have different modes of teaching, different modules. One of them is the lane of least resistance. Always have an escape route, and constant scanning of your mirrors. Long time ago we'd say, okay, every 5 seconds or every 7 seconds you should be scanning your mirrors. Mm-hmm. I mean, really it boils down to it is scan them regularly. Have good situational awareness. Know where you are. Know your traffic around you. Anytime you say, my gosh, where did he come from? Or where did she come from? You're not checking your mirrors regularly enough.
I check them regularly, and trust me, it happens a fair amount with me. But I remember when I took my driving, which is also Canadian-based defensive driving course over 3 decades ago, one of the lines that stuck with me was basically what you said. Always assume that everybody else on the road is an idiot. and will behave irrationally.
Expect the unexpected.
And just plan for that, and once you plan for that, you're fine.
Right.
And I guess it served me well over the years. But to give people a sense, before we run out, we have about 7 or 8 minutes left. There's a classroom module, and I believe the full course is 20 hours, 21 hours?
20 hours.
20 hours.
Yes.
You have a shorter version for people who can't commit that much time,
Yes.
which is the 4 hours?
Yeah, we have 4-hour programs, we have 8-hour programs, we have 12-hour programs, 20-hour programs, and all of our programs are all customized. As I said, we have solutions for every aspect of driving. We have solutions for every driver.
For beginners, the professionals, the fleets, things like that.
Correct. Our solutions are totally mobile. So if an organization says, look, we have 100 drivers, but we can't bring them all down to Piarco, what we want to do is you come to us. We can bring our simulator, we can bring our classroom, we can bring our instructors, and operate on site.
And I have to say, the little bit taste that I got, it was really quite interesting because you've kind of geared it for the modern age because you're never sort of bored. There's always something going on that's sort of engaging your attention. The individual teaching lessons are quite short, and then you've got two-way feedback,
Yes.
which makes it sort of engaging, isn't it?
Yes, it's a very modern approach to driver education, as well as it's quite interactive, and as you mentioned, it engages the participant in the training. And that's very valuable because that's where they absorb the information, and that's where it's registered up here.
Now, one of the things that I thought was really innovative is that you've got another program that sort of involves parents as well, and to me that's almost like you're giving back to the community, which I guess it is because you're giving back to the community.
Yes.
Because quite honestly, a lot of people who will be interested in this program will be parents who have young people in their family who are going to have to be on the road soon, and they don't want them to die on the nation's roads.
Yes.
And you have a program to engage the parents as well in that whole process.
Yes. Driving is one of the tasks in life that people underestimate. They overlook the necessity of driver education. We put so much emphasis on education, on educating our children, on helping them to build their career, to be independent. But one of the things that we overlook is how do they get from point A to point B? They do that by driving. Mm-hmm. Driving is one of the most dangerous things that they will ever do in their life. Especially depending on what country you live in, it could be even more dangerous. So we want to be able to share our philosophies with everyone. Those who can come and do part of our training, great. We want to make our programs totally accessible. We have online training. As I said, we have remote training where we come out to you, you can come to us. We want to make it accessible to everyone. And even for the co-driver program that you were speaking about, that is for the parents and the students to be able to come to us and sit down in a brief 2-hour seminar, and we go through the proper approach of driving, what the participant should do and how they should be taught. And it's a free course. They can come in and
those are two words you don't hear very often in this country, free course.
Yeah, like I said, we really want to save lives. We even started a new initiative where we start training students from the ages of 14 years and up.
And that's from your piloting experience as well, isn't it?
Correct. Yeah, we've trained students as early as 14 years in aviation, and we've seen the great results that has given us. When they go to flight school, they're far ahead above the rest. So we thought, if we could duplicate that on the driving side, if we could take a student at 14 years of age, bring them in for our training. Remember, most of our program is designed to show you the visual cues leading up to a collision. It's to show you how to identify hazards. So all of this you can actually do from the passenger seat. So now, when a child turns 17 years of age, the parent doesn't have to say, oh my God, they're going to go on the road. Mm-hmm. You know what? Guess what? They now have 3 years of experience because they've been sitting in the seat. They have all this knowledge, and they've been putting it to use. You wouldn't be surprised that they might even one day say, Mom, stop, and a car will come by. Because they're trained. They're trained to know what to look for. They're trained to be able to identify hazards.
And I guess young minds absorb things and hold on to it for the rest of their lives. I guess.
Yes, and if they're trained properly, what we're doing is we're molding the minds from an early age, and I mean it's really, really important, especially with the road fatalities that we have in Trinidad and Tobago. It's definitely a concern.
And before we completely run out of time, I mean, do you think there are any challenges to having a program like this? Do you think people will actually appreciate how important it is? Because, we're a nation of, I don't want to say cheapskates, but if we can do something on the cheap and think, well, I can go and just get my license and drive like everybody else, or I can spend a bit of money and time and effort and learn how to be a safer driver, I'll go for the cheap one.
I have to say I'm quite happy with how receptive our ideas have been, based on just some of the TV that we've done, some of the write-ups in the newspapers. Anyone who's seen that, they contact us, and we're talking about large organizations, large companies. Parents are calling us. For the summer, we had a summer camp for students 14 years of age and over, and I was very pleasantly surprised at how receptive it was amongst the parents. We got so many calls, and students. Parents, they spend money, especially for the betterment of their child.
And to keep them alive.
They will do it, yes. So, yes. And we're doing that for Christmas as well. We're actually running a Christmas program. It's the same kind of camp for 14 years and up.
Well, Rodney, we're out of time, but if people want to get more information, and they should, because I think it's a really great program, your website is DriveWiseTrinidad.com.
Correct.
And they can email you at contact@DriveWiseTrinidad.com, and the number I see here is 223-5644, and you're located on Beewee Boulevard, which I've now discovered is the road to get to Piarco and not the road to the old airport.
Yes.
And it's quite convenient, you've got parking. Rodney Ragbear of DriveWise, a pleasure having you on the program. I'll have you on again soon to talk about flying, which is even more entertaining. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you, Vernon.
A pleasure. You've been watching One on One. Join us again tomorrow for another edition.